This news program is proudly brought to you by
Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits
and Now Biscuits.
Public service dedication mass held today. Attorney General Niningi passes condolences to Dr. Gelu's family. And Air New Guinea flights resume operations. Good evening, you're watching National EMTV News. I'm Grace Papiali. Thank you for joining us. The annual dedication mass for public servants was held this morning at the Sir John Guy's Indoor Complex in Port Moresby. This was to dedicate this year's activities and programs to God before the public servants resume work for this year. Present at the event were the members of Parliament, together with the departmental heads and public service officers.
Public servants in all the departments turned up as early as 8 o'clock this morning at the Sir John Guy Stadium to attend the dedication mass.
Lord, I give you my heart.
The opening remarks was made by the Chief Secretary Ivan Pomaliu.
Public service dedication.
The theme for this year's dedication program is building the nation with integrity and skillfulness through the public service. Minister for Public Service and member for Nuku Open Joe Sungi says as public servants they have to ask themselves what they have been doing for the country.
Whilst you are issued with a duty statement, as soon as you are employed, as soon as you accept the offer, you are given a duty statement. That duty statement gives you what your responsibilities are for that position number that you've applied for and you won. The question is, do you know your duty statement?
He asked the public servants to reflect on their conducts in office in terms of accountability and punctuality.
There comes the most important form that many of us don't do, and that is the staff performance appraisal. The staff performance appraisal holds you into account whether you've actually performed the task that is been given to you by the government through the job duty statement that you've been given to when you were employed and you accepted the offer. And if you are a departmental head, your responsibility is to make sure that every single one of your public servants that serve under you must know their responsibilities.
Prime Minister James Marape in his keynote address emphasized that each department must have key performing indicators for the good of their departments and the country.
Down into KPIs so that each and every one of you have a KPI that is linked to a key result area that in totality is linked to the betterment of our country, so that those people, the over 4 million to 5 million of them.
Prime Minister also highlighted the reasons as to why lawlessness is of major concern in the country.
And destitute, the plight of destitute, and those who are out there with no meaningful engagements, it is an indication that the last 47 years, the sum of wastedness and complacency and corruption has outweighed the gain of productivity amongst all of us.
He says if everyone is doing their job, the country will progress well. Prime Minister James Marape and Deputy Chairman for the Body of Christ, Pastor Michael Wilson, officially launched the yearly work plan for the public service to conclude the dedication mass today. Samantha Solomon, National EMTV News.
Attorney General Pila Niningi passed his condolences to the family of the Secretary of the Department of Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs, late Dr. Alphonse Gelu. Niningi expressed that the passing of the late Dr. Gelu is a great loss to the nation.
And in the moral
Attorney General Pilar Ninigi, who was the former minister for the Ministry of Intergovernment Relations, said he is saddened of the passing of late Dr. Gelu, who passed away on Wednesday, 4th of January, in Alatau. He said he knows that his death will be a great loss to the department and pray that God will comfort his colleagues at this time of sorrow. Ninigi said on behalf of the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General, his family and the Imbongu district, he conveys their deepest condolences to the family of late Dr. Alphonse Gelu. Dr. Gelu served for a decade as the Registrar General of Integrity of Political Parties and Candidates Office before he resigned and took up his current role. Dr. Gelu was also a senior political lecturer at the University of Papua New Guinea, where he mentored the nation's political scientists and contributed to researches and publications in the field. Sharon Engnui, National EMTV News.
And New Guinea has resumed all its flights today after Puma Energy agreed to supply A1 jet fuel to them late yesterday. The announcement was made yesterday afternoon in a media statement released by Air New Guinea after Puma advised them for normal operations to take place. This was made known after Prime Minister James Marape asked the Bank of PNG to find a short-term solution to lift the restrictions made to Puma Energy.
Late yesterday afternoon, Prime Minister James Marape released a press statement asking Puma Energy and the Bank of Papua New Guinea to find a solution to their business relationship that is affecting the whole country. Prime Minister Marape, after an urgent National Security Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, asked BPNG to find a short-term solution by lifting the restrictions to Puma. Prime Minister James Marape says BPNG has the highest level of foreign reserves of more than 13 billion kina, and therefore foreign exchange in the central bank is not an issue in the case of Puma Energy. Air New Guinea then released a statement saying all flights will resume tomorrow after Puma Energy advised them on the normal delivery of supply of fuel to the airline. This was the scene this morning at the Jackson's domestic terminal in Port Moresby. The place was packed to capacity with passengers who couldn't travel yesterday, including passengers who are traveling today. Air New Guinea advised those affected customers to revalidate their travel to the next available flight. Samantha Solomon, National EMTV News.
Following a successful first annual performance two-day review in December last year, the National Capital District Provincial Health Authority, or NCD PHA, will be launching its corporate plan this quarter. This was revealed by NCD PHA CEO, Dr. Stephen Yenny.
The annual implementation plan performance review workshop will basically inform us to develop our annual implementation plan for the 2023. This will basically help us to operationalize our corporate plan. Corporate plan will be launched this month, this quarter, so hopefully by end of the month. So once we complete our annual implementation plan, then we will get the media press.
The women groups had made calls for the restoration of government services in the Porgera district of Enga province. An appeal was again made for the restart of the operations at the Porgera mine this year, as this will help boost economic activities in the Porgera district. Due to the closure of the Porgera mine mid-year of 2022, it has caused burdens on the day-to-day operations of small businesses and the informal sector in Porgera. After the closure of essential services like the Payam Hospital, Porgera Secondary and Primary Schools, Judicial Services, and the District Administration Office, following a tribal fight conflict at Payam Station, the people in the district have been struggling. Porgera Women in Business President and Aumbi Lodge owner Elizabeth Yarume said that restoration of government services in Porgera need to be a priority for the national and provincial governments. She added that students are expected to miss another year of education as schools remain closed.
Mi plakat big plan mind stop. Time planting national government you interest lo disla, provincial government you interest lo disla. Time you play interest lo disla something. You play think lo life lo people lo nogat. Time all line current big plan money na all go work banking blow lo. Again wabek na go this old up on the road. Mary got bell em go current picking in the road die. Plenty heavy or some come up. All school picking in the Pogara go out to find school. All talk no gat.
Porgera District Women Association President Sarah Erasi has requested the national government and Barrick New Guinea Limited to clarify on when the Porgera mine is expected to restart operations.
Mine on na mibla get us like sim or good la benefit. Mine work closed up now I'm 3 years. Okay, this year I'm back 4 years. So please mibla appeal. You Prime Minister, you come to Porgera. Provincial government, you come to Porgera.
Youth Rep Joy Terror, speaking on behalf of impacted young girls, highlighted that young girls have been the main victims of kidnapping and rape during tribal conflicts and called for a police PNG Defence Force barracks to be set up permanently in Porgera. Delta Fly MP Agena Gamai has given a total of 650,000 kina in tertiary student subsidiary fees for the Delta Fly student sponsorship program to be paid to institutions, both private and government-owned around the country. 2 checks were presented in a presentation made at the Delta Fly District Office in Balimo, Western Province.
Since taking up office, the first ever Member of Parliament, Agena Gamai, for the newly created electorate of Delta Fly, has been hard at work implementing his plans for the next 5 years into his priority areas. One of the focal priority areas is education, and the Delta Fly MP took the opportunity at his district office in Balimo to present the 2 checks.
2 checks are broken down for the Delta Fly students. We have total of what we approved here with my members. Present this Delta Fly student sponsorship program to the coordinator this morning.
The 2 checks were divided into 600,000 kina and 50,000 kina respectively. This is not the first time the new member has given funds for education in his district. Last year, the local member gave a total of 300,000 kina to support students in his electorate. Meanwhile, the member for South Fly, Agena Gamai, revealed that along with education, health and infrastructure are on top of his priority areas in his electorate. Rocky Iso, National EMTV News.
National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Serving PNG for 60 years, not-for-profit emergency medical service St. John Ambulance has quietly gone about its businesses in providing the first line of ambulance and rescue services. In an exclusive interview, St. John Ambulance CEO Matt Cannon spoke about the operations and why St. John Ambulance is successful.
The success and growth of the St. John Ambulance in PNG is evident from the work it carries out, which speaks volumes in the business of saving lives. This was made evident yesterday in a nasty accident when 5 men got injured when 2 vehicles collided at 15 Mile just outside of Port Moresby before 3 p.m. A 111 call to the operations centre alerted St. John, who were there to attend to the injured people.
The ambulance crews attended to 5 male patients in their 20s and 30s. We attended to 3 casualties that appear to suffer serious injuries, including possible fractures to their pelvis and lower limbs with potentially life-threatening injuries. We had 2 other passengers that were injured as well. All 5 patients were transported to Port Moresby General Hospital. An advanced early notification was given to Port Moresby Hospital within 10 minutes of us receiving the call for the emergency, so that they could prepare their emergency department and any other specialties that needed to be involved in the treatment of the patient.
CEO for the St. John Ambulance Services, Matt Cannon, is a career paramedic and registered nurse who has nearly 2 decades of experience in emergency medical services. Yesterday's accident is only an example of the work they carry out on a daily basis.
But it fluctuates on a daily basis between around 50 to 100 calls per day. We've been particularly busy over the last 2 weeks of the New Year's Christmas celebrations. Unfortunately, alcohol does seem to feature highly in a lot of the incidents that we're called to over that period, be it violence or be it road traffic collisions like we've seen today.
Under the leadership of Mr. Cannon, over the last 8 years, the organisation has reset its vision and strategy to expand coordinated emergency ambulance services, community health education and aeromedical retrieval. Mr. Cannon revealed why St. John Ambulance Services have been successful.
We have a team of about 230 people that work in NCD, in Central Province, in Ley, in Kokopo and up in the Highlands area. It's a fantastic team that is proud of helping other people. They step forward when help is needed, and that's our philosophy at St. John, to help when it's needed, and that's what we remain entirely focused on.
Emergency care is an essential part of the health system, and St. John Ambulance is always the first respondent in PNG. These Green Angels go about their work quietly, without recognition and without fear or favour. Rocky Iso, National EMTV News.
More than 50,000 different species of trees were planted in a nursery to be transplanted in the Daulo district of Eastern Highlands Province, with the aim to prevent soil erosion, landslides and floods. This is part of the Daulo Commodities Cooperative Society Limited's goal of doing community forestry to fight against climate change.
Daulo Commodity Corporation in Daulo District is committed in promoting sustainable approach to community forestry and the mitigation of climate change impacts. 50,000 trees were planted in the nursery to be distributed among the farmers to be replanted. Some of the trees were also sold to interested individuals or groups to plant. According to the director for Daulo Commodity Corporation, Jerry Aviro, the corporation received technical support and capacity building on sustainable approach, community forestry and climate change training under the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research in collaboration with the Eastern Highlands Provincial Forestry Office. He said they also access grant support, solar panels, poly bags and training under incentive funds through the local NGO known as Partners with Melanesians Inc. or PWM. Cynthia Maku, National EMTV News.
Road upgrade is continuing in various parts of Mount Hagen City in the Western Highlands Province. Today, the contractor EMK Construction upgraded parts of Ward 7, known as Red Ground. EMTV caught up with EMK construction workers who were busy ripping off old bitumen surfaces near Warakum Junction. This area had a huge pothole and used to be waterlogged during rainy weather. According to project engineer Sam Jack, they were going around upgrading parts of the city roads that had huge potholes, though their scope of work was to upgrade and seal the section near the hospital and around the main market. Jack said they were working on these access roads because there are a lot of traffic congestion in the city. With the upgrade, drivers can choose alternative routes to avoid inconveniences. A local bulb onion farmer in the Daulo district of Eastern Highlands province has reported that the change in weather patterns have greatly affected the yield of bulb onion production. This has resulted in the shortage of bulb onion from his farm to his buyers in Eastern Highlands and Morobe provinces.
Representing the local onion farmers in an established corporation in Karamu village of Daulo district, Jerry Aviro said continuous rain and storm have badly affected the yield of the bulb onions. He said other vegetables have also been affected by the continuous downpour. He stated that farmers have made losses because not many onions have been harvested. Meanwhile, the nation's capital is also facing a shortage of bulb onions in shops and markets. Vendors at the Boroko market who sell brown onions have reported a shortage of supply to them from their suppliers. It is also noticed that prices of the onions have gone up in markets around the city due to the shortage of supply. Cynthia Maku, National EMTV News.
The provisional license granted to Teachers Savings and Loan Society Limited by the Bank of Papua New Guinea to operate as a commercial bank has taken a long journey, and the road to becoming a fully fledged bank will take time as TISA works on operational issues. This was made known by Acting Governor for the Bank of Papua New Guinea, Benny Popoitai.
The news that the Teachers Savings and Loan Society, or TISA, are making moves to becoming a commercial bank has been received with much praise. Prime Minister James Marape has welcomed the decision by the Bank of PNG, with Acting Governor of the Bank of Papua New Guinea, Benny Popoitai, revealing that it has taken time since the application was first lodged.
They have lodged an application like 10 years ago. Yes, it's a long process. As you know, that because they have nationwide teachers live in rural areas, the process getting their approval and endorsement to apply for a license, they've done that. So we have given them provisional license or license in principle.
The Bank of PNG granted a provisional license on the 9th of May 2022 to TISA, and TISA is currently working on operational issues to meet the stringent requirements of the Bank of Papua New Guinea.
They need to set up their systems and processes, and because TISA also is a significant savings and loan society, they have shares in listed companies that they need to deal with, and they must deal with it properly. And so that process is taking a while. And once they deal with those issues, then we will move towards.
Towards Christmas of last year, the Prime Minister James Marape said in a statement that the country needs Papua New Guinean banks owned by the people and are committed to serve the people. The move by TISA into the retail commercial bank space will add to the number of banks currently serving the country. Rocky Iso, National EMTV News.
And now looking at the NAS Fund market report, the Kina closed unchanged at $0.2840 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, Kina was buying $0.2765 $0.4061 Australian dollars, $0.2554 euro, and 36.44 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading higher, coffee closed lower, cocoa closed higher, copper closed lower, palm oil closed lower, crude oil is trading higher, and copper closed lower. On the stock market, the Dow Jones closed lower, the ASX 200 is trading higher, and the All Ordinaries is trading higher. National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to National MTV News. Moving to overseas news now, and tens of thousands of mourners have gathered at the Vatican for the funeral service of the former Pope Benedict, who died on New Year's Eve.
Before the largest church in all Christendom, in front of a crowd of 50,000, he was brought for one final time to spontaneous applause. It was, of course, the last occasion the two popes were together, one presiding over the funeral of the other. During his homily, Pope Francis used biblical references in which he appeared to compare Benedict to Jesus.
We want to do this with the same wisdom, tenderness and devotion that he bestowed on us over the years. Together we want to say, Father, into your hands we commend his spirit.
In the crowd were an estimated 4,000 members of the clergy, and many who admired the Pope Emeritus as a theologian and intellectual. Although, of course, Pope Benedict stepped down long before he died, a lot of the rituals, a lot of the liturgy are those that we've seen over the ages of papal deaths. Unusually, though, at this funeral, prayers are being said for both the previous Pope and the incumbent one. There was a final farewell blessing. Inside the coffin with Pope Benedict, a deed detailing his achievements. It included a line about his role in tackling abuse. That's upset many of his critics. But as the service ended, others chanted that Benedict should immediately be made a saint. Away from public gaze in a crypt, cardinals accompanied him in burial.
Many of the cardinals who were here were a bit on the older side and will have known him intimately. And so there was a kind of final salute, which it was a privilege for me to be part of.
The 265th Pope, over 2,000 years, Benedict XVI, in the resting place he chose for himself.
Evacuations are continuing from isolated communities across Western Australia's Kimberley region due to flooding that's been described as the worst the state has seen.
We've got off pretty lightly. There's been 2 or 3 homes that have had trees on their roofs, but no real structural damage or damage to their integrity. So lots of drainage issues and flooding, local flooding. But overall, the water's drained away pretty quickly. Most of the drains have handled the water pretty well. The last 3 days, we've had somewhere near 600 millimetres of rain, but that's all drained away pretty quickly, and the rain's been nice and consistent, so it hasn't caused any major problems.
Keith, as you mentioned, it's a very different story for Fitzroy Crossing. What's the latest you can tell us about the situation there?
We've got an update at midday, so I can't tell you too much, but I know that the Fitzroy Crossing is dropping. There's still evacuations being taken place there. There's still issues with evacuation centres and getting supplies to people. Broome is now cut off. About an hour ago, we got cut off from the south, so the highway is closed. The highway is also closed to Halls Creek, so Derby and Fitzroy are isolated. Broome's now isolated, so the next big issue will be getting supplies into all of the local communities. Making arrangements for permits for vehicles to travel through the floodwaters. The Roebuck Plains is the area that's flooded. It's relatively long and shallow, so vehicles over 500 millimetres can get through. So they'll issue permits for trucks to get through the highway, bringing supplies. If the closures go on longer than a couple of weeks, in the past there's been barges from Bidjidanga to Broome to provide supplies. Supplies to the East Kimberley will come through the Northern Territory. So I'm confident that all arrangements that are in place will make sure that we have the resources that we need.
Russian authorities have called for 36-hour ceasefire on the Ukrainian front line to coincide with the start of Orthodox Christmas.
For the truce to allow believers to attend church services. President Vladimir Putin has asked Ukraine to reciprocate, but Kyiv has labelled the ceasefire hypocritical, saying no truce will be honoured until Russian forces withdraw from occupied territory.
Everyone in the world knows how the Kremlin uses respite in the war to continue with renewed vigour. To end the war faster, something completely different is needed. Even when your missiles and drones don't hit our cities, the terror in the occupied territories continues. You don't give Ukrainians any respite. People are tortured, electrocuted and raped. This continues every day, as long as your soldiers are on our soil. The war will end either when your soldiers leave or we throw them out. So let them return to their place, outside of our border, as of 1991.
The US president believes the Kremlin is trying to shore up local support for the war effort by floating the proposal. Joe Biden says he's reluctant to respond to anything Vladimir Putin says.
I found it interesting. He was ready to bomb hospitals and nurseries and churches, and on the 25th and New Year's, and I mean, you know, I think he's trying to find some oxygen.
National MTV News continues after the break with Trukai Sport. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Chairperson of the PNG Athletes Commission, Ryan Pinney, has been appointed as member of the World Anti-Doping Agency Group 3 Athlete Council recently. The Athlete Council will represent, support, and promote the voices of athletes on anti-doping matters. Anti-doping means to oppose or prohibit illegal doping, such as blood doping or the use of anabolic steroids or growth hormones to improve athletic performance. The PNG Olympic Committee has congratulated Mr. Pinney on his appointment. A 2-week volleyball competition was held recently at Depi Sharks community in Mount Hagen, Western Highlands Province, sponsored by a businessman and community leader, John Wow. The aim of the competition was to gather all the youths within the community and help them keep them from getting involved in unlawful activities.
Competition manager Tom Markey acknowledged the sponsorship, highlighting that such sporting activities contribute immensely to the reduction of illegal activities by youths, such as consumption of illegal drugs and drinking of homebrew, that leads to multiple problems experienced within the community. He said the competition has led to a peaceful celebration and observation of Christmas and New Year. The youth representative, Stephen Rockra, also acknowledged the Western Islands provincial government for putting a complete ban on alcohol and highlighted that the government should focus on promoting such competition as a way to reduce criminal activities in the province. 20 teams participated in the competition, 10 female and 10 male teams. The competition ended on the 1st of January. Sharon Engnui, Trukai Sports.
Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
You're watching Trukai Sports. Moving on to overseas sports news now. It's been a frustrating start today for the pink test due to rainfall at the SCG.
There's nothing more frustrating for cricket fans than seeing the covers on the pitch, and unfortunately it's a sight that we've got all too used to seeing over the course of the last few years at the Sydney Test. In fact, only 1 year in the last 8 have we had an uninterrupted Test match at the SCG. And it's all the more disappointing because it's Jane McGrath Day at the SCG today on day 3, where funds are raised to help support breast cancer nurses across the country. So very disappointing. That ceremony, the pre-match, or pre-day's play ceremony, I should say, has actually been postponed until tomorrow, which should give us a bit of an indication that they don't think there's going to be much chance of play. But we are still holding out a little bit of hope that we might get an hour or two later on this afternoon.
Yeah, and Usman Khawaja is on 195 runs. Is there going to be a chance for him to reach his maiden double Test century?
Well, you'd certainly hope so. He's on 195. He's had such a great return to the Australian Test team. It started last year at the SCG when he made a century in each innings. He could double up in the first innings here, just 5 runs away. If he does do so, it will be the first time in Test cricket history in Australia that 4 different batters will have scored 200 over the course of a summer. However, with the match situation, you do wonder whether or not Pat Cummins will opt to declare and leave him stranded on 195, which would be hugely disappointing. But I have a feeling that Australia may well do that, particularly if they can't get any play in today.
Well, Simon, let's look to tomorrow. The forecast is better. Is there a chance of getting a result in the match?
Well, you'd certainly think so. South Africa have been very disappointing over the course of the Test match. So they've only passed 200 as a team once. I don't expect they'll be able to do that on a wearing SCG pitch either. So with 2 days, if we get all 2 days play in, then Australia should have a really good opportunity to bowl them out twice. The only possible obstruction to that will be the fact that there is the potential for more rain. We'll just keep our fingers crossed, but you never know. Fingers crossed we'll get a result and Australia will complete a perfect Test summer.
What is already being called the greatest leg of darts in history, with the Englishman beating his Dutch rival to a perfect line dart finish in the PDC World Championship final.
And he's defeated his arch rival in Michael van Gerwen to a perfect 9 dart finish in the PDC World Championship Darts Finals. It was Smith's first world title, beating the Dutch great 7-4 in the best of 13 sets final. But the overall result was overshadowed by what was 2 minutes of an incredible play earlier in the match.
Michael may miss and Michael may hit. They're both on 9s. They're both on a 9. This is insane. Come on now. Wow, the World Championship final. Michael van Gerwen is on a 9 darter in the World final and just misses double 12. Over to you, Michael Smith. One man misses. Does the other man get? I've never seen the like. Come on, Spolly boy.
Watched that about 10 times this morning, Joe, and it doesn't. I love that moment. What a great. It's a moment of sport.
And that ends True Kai Sports. The Money Plus weather report is next. Stay with us.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus, with you always.
Now we take a look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. In the southern region, Port Moresby City, cloudy periods with brief showers. Daru, few squally showers. Kerema, cloudy periods with brief showers. Alotau, brief showers. Popondetta, cloudy periods with brief showers. In Momase region, Ley City, brief showers. Medang, few showers with possible thunderstorms. Wewak and Vanimo, mostly fine. In the New Guinea Islands region, Lorengau, partly cloudy. Kavieng, cloudy periods. Kokopo and Rabaul, cloudy periods with brief showers. Kimbe, few showers. Buka, cloudy periods with brief showers. In the Highlands region, Mount Hagen City, cloudy with few showers and possible thunderstorms. Goroka and Kundiawa, cloudy with few showers. Mendi and Wabag, cloudy with few showers and thunderstorms. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru to Kerema to Yule Island to Hood Point to Samarai Islands, seas 3 to 4.5 meters. Waters of Samarai Islands to Cape Vogel and eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters, rising to 3 meters along Samarai Islands and eastern Milne Bay Islands. Waters of Cape Vogel to Huon Gulf to Finchafen, seas 5.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Finchafen through VTS Dampier Straits to CSE Long Islands, seas 2 to 3 meters. Waters of Long Island to Madang to Wewak to Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border, seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of New Island to New Britain and Bougainville, seas 1 to 2 meters, rising to 2.5 to 3 meters along West New Britain. Coral Sea, seas very rough, northwest winds of 34 to 48 knots. Solomon Sea, seas moderate to rather rough, northwest winds of 15 to 25 knots. Bismarck Sea, seas moderate to rather rough, northwest winds of 15 to 25 knots. Pacific Ocean, sea slight, northeast to northwest winds of 10 to 15 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And that wraps up the news, sports and weather for Friday, the 6th of January 2023. From the entire news team, have a safe weekend. Bye for now.
This news program was proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Gold Nuggets.